Hello, everybody. I'm Spegtacular, the Silverstacular. I'm here today with Lior Gantz from the Wealth Research Group, the founder. Lior, how's it going?
It's going very well. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, you came on the show not too long ago. It's only been about, a couple of months now, and had some great information. And we see a lot of craziness going on in the world, and it's nice to have your point of view. So if you can, recap slightly, give people a kind of little information about you, and then kind of tell me what you think's going on here. What's this craziness going on in this world?
Sure. In terms of myself, sort of a blessing and a curse. My father's business went under when I was 13, and when he tried to resurrect it, it went under again at 18. So I kind of got into making money when I was 13, and understood that I would have no backup plan or family business or anything by the time I was 18. So this was always something that was in my life, and it's a blessing and a curse because by the time I was 18, I already opened up my brokerage account, started buying equities, working and stuff like that. And by 2008, I had suffered so much crises in my own life that I looked at crises different than other people, and I was ready for what happened in America and with the real estate business and such. So by the time 2016 rolls around, I am in my early 30s, and when I speak with my friends that are at the same age group, they had no idea about financial history, about the gold standard, all of it. And I really found that there was a huge vacuum that I could fill if I can just gather my thoughts 3 or 4 times a week and put it on paper and send it out as a newsletter. And that's how Wealth Research Group was created, as a free financial newsletter. And it's been almost 7 years now. And that's basically the premise of the newsletter, to kind of everything I learn, investments, personal finance, etc. I speak with CEOs, with fund managers, and I kind of put it into an article 3 times a week. And we also cover companies that I personally purchase and buy, etc. On the newsletter on wealthresearchgroup.com.
Right on. Now, today, for people that are watching, we're going to talk about some silver and gold, what's going on in the world, inflation, and the raising of rates by the Fed, which is very interesting to me. And I have some recent information on that. But I do want to say that for anybody that wants to look further into the Wealth Research Group, I'll have your information, Lior, down in the description of this video in case anybody wants to click and hit that real quick and get some more information. But Lior, I had to buy a car recently. I wanted to trade mine in, buy a new car, and I'm scouring trying to find the one that I wanted, and I found it, but we couldn't quite come to an agreement on price. It's a back and forth haggle situation. And they told me one day, they said, "Hey, rates are going up. We need to lock this in right now." And I thought it was a gimmick, but rates went up, and now I have to pay more for the car only a couple days after I, talked to these people. And then maybe like a week and a half, 2 weeks after that, rates went up again. Like, what do you think's going on here? What's happening?
Funny you think about cars, because my wife asked me to explain a little bit more to her about what's going on a few days ago. And I was like, okay, well, forget finance. Here's how I can explain it to you. Think you had a car, and the car had a lot of issues, only you didn't know. Because every time you went to the mechanic, he would tell you everything's fine. Oil's fine, tires are fine, engine's fine. But actually, it's because he was being lazy, not even checking. And then on the other side, the manufacturer also knew the problems with the car. He had to do a big recall, and he didn't, because he was hiding it. So you're driving this car, you're thinking everything's fine. The mechanic says it's fine. The manufacturer doesn't tell you anything. And one day, there's no oil, all the tires come off, and you're left there with just the wheel in your hand, and you have a huge accident. And that was 2008. The mechanic in this story are the banks. The manufacturer is the Federal Reserve. And we all know that the consumer, or the homeowner, it was there and faced this huge accident. And because it was their fault in the eyes of the public. Both the banks, which are the mechanics, and the Fed and the government, to that extent, they did everything they can to make life easy for the guy in the car. They fixed his car from there on, and they made sure that every day they told, yeah, everything's okay. Everything's okay with you. Are you okay? Give me and let me check. Like everything, they did everything for this homeowner or this the average American family to make their lives as easy as possible. They lowered rates to zero, not metaphorically anymore. They lowered rates to zero. They did any debt monetization they could. They tried everything they could to make sure that you are driving a great car, and they gave it to you for free. Come in for a free checkup, come in for this. People started to feel invincible. And as 2020 rolled around, the car, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a rock fell on the car. That was COVID. Not nobody's fault. Boom, fell on the car. Immediately, the mechanic and the manufacturer call you in. They fix your car. You get a new car with the turbo inside of it. Now you're really feeling like invincible. Like everything that happens to me, somebody's there to take care of me. And you start driving that car, but you're not a good driver to drive like a very powerful car with a turbo. So now you're driving a car that's a little bit too good for you. You try to steer it, you can't get a handle on it, and the manufacturer doesn't want to bother you. Like you just give you a fresh car, a great car. Well, he's going to tell you, come in, I'll take out the turbo. That's how inflation came into the picture. They gave so much stimulus in 2020 to revive the economy that now some people are driving a car that they can't handle. They have too much money. They're going out, they're buying Rolexes, they're buying this, and that's what we had. And that is how I explained it, because the problem is not like 2008. It's not like we have a bad car that's leaking and stuff like that. No, we have a car that some people can't handle. We have a feeling of invincibility, and that's what they're trying to really explain to the public. And now they're not the nice guy they used to be, because now it's time for them to say, okay, well, we may have given you too much free stuff. We may have helped you too much. We may have stoked the economy too much. Some people warned about this all along. Some people don't know anything about it, but because you live in the society where your actions might be very good and you may even know how to drive this car carefully, but because you live in a whole society, like you said, you want to get a car, rates go up. What did you do? You did nothing, but rates go up because you live inside of the global economy, and some people need to be tamed because there's inflation out there. The inflation stems from many people deciding to pay prices that they wouldn't a few years ago. And there's a lot of other things that come to mind why there's inflation. The end result here is that the Fed cannot stop what they're doing right now until they really crush that inflation story. The problem is whether or not they will be able to do that without creating so much collateral damage that they'll have to stop midway through the process. And that's basically the huge debate and what will decide the fate of this economy. But I want to tell you that in January of this year, when Chair Powell came on to the U.S. Banking and Households and Housing Committee and really panicked and said inflation is really out of control, I said that the zero interest rate policies are over. We will not see zero interest rates for ages now. And people, said I was being naive and premature and that the Fed, is the sugar daddy. No. If you look at my name there, it says wealthresearchgroup.com/ZERP. ZERP is acronym for zero interest rate policies. If you download that report and really go through it, you will understand why the Fed will not pivot back down. They will not panic into slashing rates to zero anymore. They may stop raising interest rates. Of course they will. They may even pivot in terms of like turning dovish on their words instead of hawkish, but rates are not going to zero. That's it. They for the remainder of this decade and perhaps even longer, they will stay at the levels that they are right now, 3, 4, 5%, and we're getting back into a world of normal rates. So I think that's where we are, and every person that made choices and decisions based on zero interest rate policies, those now will be viewed in hindsight as mistakes. In other words, growth stocks that can only survive and thrive in zero interest rates policies, they were overvalued. No matter how you look at them, they were overvalued. And I can go into the many explanations why. Housing, overvalued. And some of these things will experience a comeback because the fundamentals are good for said companies. But as a sector, many sectors were priced for a premium because of zero interest rates, and interest rates are almost like gravity on valuations. So that's where we are right now. I feel like it's not over by a long shot, and I don't see yet the full extent of behavioral changes that will make inflation go down substantially. So in my opinion, if the Fed cannot get CPI to go below the 6 and the 5s, meaningfully showing progress, I think that we may see in 2023 that the Fed will say that their new target is not 2%, but 3%. And that's the big bombshell that I think might happen in 2023.
Right on. I just don't understand their logic that raising rates. So, inflation happens. It's record inflations right now. And then we're paying more for cars and houses, as a good example. And people need houses. So they're buying these houses at extreme prices. And then you have higher interest rates like every single week. It seems like it's just going up and up and up. And people now want more money when they go to work. They have to raise the minimum wage and more money. And it's like, where do we, I don't think that we're going to come back from this thing. It seems like it's a terrible spiral of doom. But, most people that watch my channel, Leo, they like gold and silver,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love it too. What is this going to affect on the gold and silver markets?
Well, this is creating a generational blow off top for the dollar index. And on the flip side, it is creating the ultimate bottom for silver and a nice bottom. I wouldn't say the ultimate bottom, but a very nice bottom for gold. And let me explain this. The Fed now is tightening the most aggressively they've done. And I would argue this is more aggressive in terms of the pace and the acceleration of this than what Paul Volcker did. Paul Volcker came in after a decade that we were fighting inflation, not a year or two, but a decade of fighting inflation without stop. They thought they got a handle in the mid-70s, and then it got away from them. And he came in and he basically raised rates from 10 to 20%. So he doubled interest rates, but interest rates were already 10%. Powell has done something that nobody has done. He went from zero to, you see what's going on with mortgage rate. This is like insane. So I think that they've been very aggressive, and I can only tell you, think about like a basketball coach to teenagers, and he's trying to be very friendly with them. So after practice, he takes them. He's almost like a friend to them. That's his mentality, and that's why that team feels like very safe with their coach. Imagine that coach coming one day and say, you know what, guys, it's over. I am not your friend anymore. Like flips 180 degrees, and everyone's like, you're messing with us. You're a friend. And he's like, no, it's over. It's over. You guys have, some of you are allowing yourself not to come to practice anymore. Some of you, go home. You have excuses. I want discipline. And they're like, well, what do you mean? What's discipline? They don't even know the word. And I think that's what Powell's doing. He was a friend to the market for 13 years, and now he's like, I don't care about the markets at all. The only thing I care about is inflation and jobs, and that's a huge change. And because it's a huge change, it's really creating a situation where a lot of money, a lot of big money is coming out of stocks and actually going into bonds. And it's creating a huge, huge move to the dollar, because treasury bonds pay the best interest rates of all of the developed economies. So if you're in Europe or in Asia, you're exchanging your foreign currency into dollars and you're buying treasuries. And that is creating a massive blow off top in the US dollar index, because once Powell stops that, then a lot of the money that went into treasury as a safe haven or to straight to cash as a safe haven is going to go back to productive assets, because the panic will be over, and obviously bonds and cash don't produce as much as businesses that grow. So this is creating a situation where you can already see the trend. You're seeing they're raising. At some point, they'll say enough, we've done enough, and that will be the peak, I believe, for the dollar for perhaps the next 10 to 15 years. So you're creating this massive, massive bottom for silver, which is the most inversely correlated asset class in the world to the dollar, and gold, which is fairly inversely correlated to the dollar, is also seeing huge selling pressure right now. And both of these are in a situation where, I wouldn't even rush. You have literally the best case scenario, because the Fed is being so communicative with you. He's telling you when he will stop. So in my opinion, right now is a phenomenal time to wait out and buy really big on silver once the Fed starts to slow down, and especially when it says that for now rate hikes are halted. I think that will be the start of a massive bull market for silver. So I really like that situation, and because I never do 100%, I never 100% follow my own script, because it's just my own script. I always, dollar cost average into things. I do think that dollar cost average small into silver right now, silver and silver equities, and then going big once they halt is the ultimate strategy for silver right now. So I'm very, very bullish on silver. I'm also bullish on gold, but for me, gold will go to about 3,000 at this cycle, and silver can hit 60 in this cycle.
Well, I think everybody who stacks silver really does want to see it to hit 60, because now we're talking about, record numbers there, and it'll feel good, and it'll be, like a well-justified reward for silver stackers. But at the same time, it's going to be sad when it hits that number, because now we're paying more for our silver and our gold if it goes to 3,000. Last time we talked about deglobalization, right?
Okay.
And you got a lot of stuff going on still over in China, still going over in Russia. Tell me your kind of thoughts there about what's happening with the world as far as, them slowly start not working together like, as much as they used to.
Yeah, I think Russia and Ukraine is a conflict that's going to linger for many, many years. Basically, these two countries will need to, especially the Ukraine, will go through some existential situation. That they will basically become new countries once this conflict is over. There's the refugees out of both of these, and the people that have flocked into Turkey and Europe and Western Europe. These are people in the millions of people. The Ukraine and Russia cannot come to peace as long as Putin is in power. In terms of Europe, they have revamped their whole energy situation, and that will take years to really come to fruition. They're building new LNG ports. They're bringing back nuclear energy. They're bringing back coal. The whole energy complex is going to basically be reset. This is a huge energy reset, because the biggest petroleum station in the world is Russia, and for all sorts of reasons, they will not be trusted anymore. Even after Putin, nobody will ever rely on Russia in the same way that they relied on for the back half of this century. So these are massive global changes, and they're creating these two blocks, the Western bloc and the Eastern bloc. I don't think that trend is gonna go away. I think it will intensify as we progress throughout this century. So you've got one, Russia and the Ukraine are both countries suffering demographic collapses in the amount of births, and these are going to be two countries that will need to be reset. You will not recognize them as they will progress throughout this decade. Then you have Europe. Europe is going to be reset in terms of its energy policy. I think that is clear. They're also going to go through many changes when it comes to their politics, because the politicians that trusted Russia are going to be replaced by new politicians that are going to be more, hey, how can we become more self-sufficient, more nationalistic, more closed doors? In the US, you will see a situation that's quite terrifying. 20% of US households actually get their electricity from nuclear energy. 20% of US households already rely on nuclear energy. Half of that nuclear energy, or half of that uranium, comes from Russia. So 10% of US households actually depend on Russia for their electricity and heat and everything like that. That is going to be creating a renaissance for uranium inside of, domestically in America. So I think those things are going to play out big. And of course, oil, which was the geopolitical bargaining chip of the 20th century, is going to be replaced by chips. Chips are the 21st century geopolitical nightmare, because chips go into everything, and you've got this tiny island in the South China Sea that's in not only the global leader in manufacturing them, but it stands in the crossroads of China and the United States. So these things are going to be the most important negotiating situations for the 21st century.
Leo, I tell you what, man, it sounds like chaos. You're scaring me right now. I hope I hope everything's going to work out. Listen, you spoke that, dollar cost averaging is a great idea right now, and that when the Feds decide to hold, that's when it's going to be a good time to go ahead and hit silver heavy.
I would say a generational time. Yes.
Yeah. Any other things that we can do to kind of prepare ourselves for what's coming?
As I said, what's happening right now is, if you look at it metaphorically, you've been given a great car. The car is amazing. The global economy is working really well, and it's actually out of control in terms of it's overheated, and so it looks like it's slowing down because the car is being handled in terms of taking out some of the horsepower from the turbo engine. But once this is done, the idea basically is that you will still have a great car, but you will actually be able to drive it. So the situation we're in is not like a 2008. You don't have 15 to 20% unemployment, the banks insolvent, the government can't see what's happening, huge foreclosures in real estate. That's not what's happening right now. We are actually getting into a good spot, and it's almost like after a great party, you're hungover, now you're sobering up and you're going back to your regular life. It's all good. So what I think people should really consider here is, one, once this is over, you are really getting into a good economy, a balanced economy. So think about your career and where you want it to be, because there are many opportunities after this is over. And I think we're about 12 to 18 months from the economy going back into the most balanced it could be. So that's one thing. Secondly, I think that many companies have survived COVID, the world shutting down on them and opening back up, and now this most aggressive tightening cycle. So these businesses that have gone through this and still have strong brands, good revenue growth, are able to be profitable, etc., these are companies that you can really own for the next 20, 30 years as they continue to grow. And, I think this is really like the early 80s, where you can buy equities for good prices, sensible prices, as they become more attractive, and you can ride them to retirement. So I am very, very optimistic that if you can go through this shakeout and come out ahead, that both real estate will be very good in America, because you're still short like 4 to 5 million homes for the amount of millennials that are getting married now and forming families and need solutions, because they either were living in with like 5 people inside of major metropolitan cities, or were living with their parents. And this is changing with hybrid workforce, etc. So that's one thing. And I think that people should really understand that this is not a 2008 in terms of the real estate market. This is the real estate market going from overvalued to fairly valued, and we're still going to be in a shortage of homes. So that's one thing. Even if you're not in the real estate business as your main career, you should look at it as a secondary form of creating income. There's so many ways that you can get into it part-time. Secondly, with regards to the stock market, I think that for the rest, or at least for the next 4 or 5 years, the stock market is not gonna rip higher. This is not gonna be like the 2010s. The indices, which were like easy, put money in the Nasdaq and you're good. This is not what's going to happen in the next 4 or 5 years. You will need to find companies. You need to be a stock picker to see some great results. And the indices, I think, are going to trade sideways until they finally break out anew. But I think this is coming in 2025, 6, 7. So that's what I think about the stock market. And then with commodities, I think that's where the real motherlode is, because governments are putting focus on infrastructure, on energy, on being self-sufficient. And instead of relying on where is the cheapest place I can find my oil, or the cheapest place I can find my nat gas, governments are willing to pay more for where's the most reliable place I can find these things. And if the answer is domestically, then they will put a lot of money into reviving these industries. And that is a huge change for the Western world that for 20 years now has outsourced most of its energy supply to other countries. I think those are the things to really focus on. And obviously that's what we cover on our newsletter. I also think that if people go and check out wealthresearchgroup.com/Taiwan, it's a report that I put together about the Straits of Malacca. I think that is a key term in an area, a geographical area, to know and to understand. And every time it's on the news or any of your favorite content creators talk about it, you should really listen to what they have to report, because I think that could be the one place that starts a conflict, a military conflict between China and the United States.
Right on, Lior. Thanks again for the wealth of information you provide. You obviously have a way of critically thinking about things going on, and that's what I enjoy listening to from you, is that you think differently, and that's important right now. And that's many people that are going to college and stuff. That's all college really teaches you for the most part, is how to critically think. And it's fascinating, it's important. And I want to again tell people that if you want more information from Lior, go down in the description of this video, click on the link down there and get more information. And how often do you update information on that website, Lior?
So the newsletter is the best way to follow our work. If you go to our homepage and subscribe to our newsletter, the newsletter comes out Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday religiously for the rest of my life, as long as I can type. And on top of those 3, if I find a really attractive opportunity, then I also cover specific things that I do and companies that I really like, or opportunities outside the market that I really like. So you get the best of both of these worlds, the macroeconomics, but also specifics.
Right on. Well, listen, I greatly appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, I can get you on again later, and we can cover more topics and kind of as we go along, see how the world is progressing. And these changes that you're talking about going on, to see how those are affecting the world. Obviously, we're living in this wild times, a little chaotic out there. But I think, as you said, and don't let me speak for you, but if people can just hold on and bear with the storm a little bit, they can come out on top potentially if they're just taking the right steps.
I agree.
Lior, thank you again, and be safe out there, man.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.